Well, welcome. I'm Steve Bijou, and this is Downhome Corner, and we are all connected, as we say, and everybody has a story. Well, of course, during the pandemic, we've never been as connected as we are today. And so, we're all one big community in this world right now, and during this crisis, Down Home Corner is kind of reaching out, and we're kind of branching out a bit. And we usually hear stories of or about the Maritimes, but right now the Maritimes are every bit as connected as somebody in New York City or the tri-state area in the U.S. would be, where, for the record, as we speak here, this is the epicenter of the COVID-19 cases in the world. So this could change hours from now, as it probably will, But joining us from her home in Montclair, New Jersey, where she, like most of us on the planet, are self-isolating, is Gabrielle Glaser. And Gabrielle is a solid and well-respected journalist and a best-selling author, and she's written for the New York Times, The Atlantic, The Daily Beast, and that's just to name a few. She's also been on MSNBC on the show All In with Chris Hayes, and she's covered the 2016 Olympics in Rio de Janeiro. She's also the author of the book Her Best Kept Secret, Why Women Drink and How They Can Regain Control, which is available on Amazon. So, joining us, Gabrielle Glaser, joining us from Montclair, New Jersey. Gabrielle, welcome to Down Home Corner. Thanks for being here.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for that generous introduction. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Now, I said that you're not connected to the Maritimes. I was wrong. I lied. Full disclosure, you and I met through a mutual.
I'm waiting for this.
Yeah, I know you were. I'm setting you up, but you knew I was coming, so I didn't really set you up. But we have a mutual friend from Campbellton, New Brunswick, and that's Leslie Ferguson, as she describes it, your sister from a different mister. Am I accurate so far?
You are absolutely right. 100%. We've never met personally, but we have had many warm phone conversations, and she is absolutely that. So in that regard, you're right. I'm totally connected. Where's my Canadian passport, by the way? If that's true.
Well, I don't know if they're going to
use that right about. I could use that right about now.
Well, I'm going to tell you, honestly, full disclosure, I live in Aylmer, Quebec, which is across the river from Ottawa. So I don't know if the bridge is going to be open for me to go to the passport office for you, but I'm going to put in a word for you with the PM. Okay, I'll see what I can do.
Please do. Please do. We're in bad shape down here, brother.
Oh, I'm worried for all of us, but I'm really worried for you guys at the moment. But listen, just one final thing on Leslie here. I called her up yesterday when I told her. I said, guess who's going to be my next guest on Down Home Corner? She says, I don't know. I said, Gabrielle Glaser. She goes, oh my God. She goes, oh my God. She goes, I'm Leslie Ferguson, and I approve this interview.
Oh, that's really sweet. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Well, interviews like this, they're a bit of a cautionary tale at times, and Gabrielle, you're right in the middle of it, okay, right now. I mean, that's literally, it's all around you. And when I say this, it's close to home for you. It's not a cliche for you because, in fact, it hit your home. So tell us how COVID-19 has affected your family.
Well, to be clear, it hasn't hit my home, but I have 3 daughters, 2 of whom live in New York City. They're not social workers, but they work in a social work capacity, helping connect homeless folks with New York City services. And they work with people who are extremely vulnerable. And as you may know, we do not have widespread testing available here in New York City, but many of their clients, because they have underlying conditions, have tested positive. And my 2 older girls both got sick in early March and have been pretty much in self-quarantine ever since. So
what are their ages?
The oldest one, Ilana, is 27, and the younger one, the middle one, is 24. Her name is Moriah, and it's been really difficult to try to tell a mother. I mean, they were sick. They didn't need ventilators, or anything like that. But it was a very, very difficult period for me because I had to telemother. We're hearing about telemedicine. I had to be a telemother,
Mm-hmm.
FaceTiming them and not being able to go bring them soup, not being able to go bring them fresh fruit or vegetables. I mean, keep in mind, people, when you are sick in an apartment building in New York City right now, you need to stay in, and you're not allowed to go out and get in the sunshine. You're not allowed to go. Neither you nor your roommates are allowed to go press elevator buttons or get on stairwells because it's just spreading the virus. So that means no fresh vegetables, no fresh fruit, and just whatever you got in your pantry. That's it. So it was, it was difficult. It was a hardship, and I was very worried about them. But they're okay now. They're on the other side, and they're okay.
Well, that's good. I'm glad. I hope it stays that way and everything. The people around you stay safe as well as you. Now, the coronavirus is one thing, but there's also the virus of fear. There's the xenophobia that's raised its ugly head, and racism and prejudice. And you personally, you're kind of in choppy waters, with extremism on both the left and the right. I mean, here you are a prime target. You're a journalist, you're a woman, and you're Jewish. Does this add a level of danger or fear or concern to your work?
It's funny that you said that, because we just had to fill out the electronic form for the census, and for the first time, it asks you what your ethnicity is if you're white. It used to be just, check the box, white, Hispanic, non non-Black Hispanic, white Hispanic, other Hispanic. I mean, a lot of different ways to tell what kind of, interestingly, like what color you are, what race you are, if you come from South America or any part of Latin America. But this was the first time that you were asked to put your ethnicity if you're white. So if you're German, you're French, you're British. And by the way, like most of us, our relatives have been, our ancestors came here hundreds of years ago. My ancestors came from Poland, Germany in the 1890s. But I put down Polish Jewish, and it gave me pause. I thought, am I setting myself up?
Mm.
I mean, it's not a secret. People know who I am. People know I'm a Jew, but it was I hesitated.
Yeah.
And I was the one filling out. I have a younger daughter left at home who's 18, so I was filling out everybody's ethnicity, and I thought, I just, it's interesting you asked that, Stephen, because I thought, am I going to have a swastika on my door in a couple of months?
Well, it gives you pause for concern, because on the one hand, information and data is important, but in the wrong hands, that could be used against you. So when you're asked that question, your antenna go up, and it's almost a red light or a bells and whistle type of thing warning you. So I get you. That's weird.
Right, and I'm, on one hand, I'm proud, and on the other hand, this is codified by the government. I'm glad. I want us to be counted. I want everybody to be counted. That's the whole point, right? But yeah, in this period of big hate crimes, especially from the right, I did sort of, I hesitated. So good question, and I don't really have an answer. Yes, I do feel vulnerable. I feel like my family is vulnerable. My kids they literally wear their religion around their necks. They have, Stars of David, or the emblem, the letter Chi, which means life. And I don't do that, but I think, are we, where are we now? I watched The Plot Against America. I don't know if you saw that or read that it was a Philip Roth novel that came out in 2004, and it's just been created a miniseries on HBO. And the plot line of the book is that Charles Lindbergh, who was a famous anti-Semite, actually the pilot who crossed the Atlantic for the first time on his own. The plot of the book, the plot line of the book, is that he actually beat Roosevelt in an election, in the 1940 election, for the presidential election. And then he starts shipping Jews. He starts separating Jews and shipping them to smaller states to sort of lessen their impact as in the population centers of of New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, Boston. So it's really it is sort of eerie to be in this place at this moment.
Yeah, and then there's, I mean, you had family members connected to back to the atrocities of World War II and stuff, did you not?
I did not personally. My family got here in the 1890s, as I said, but my husband's family, most definitely, my husband's family, my father-in-law, late father-in-law, had to flee Germany as a little boy, and his father was taken. So my husband's father was taken to Dachau, beaten severely, was able to get out, but ultimately died of the injuries that he had sustained there. So yeah, it's close. It's it's an awning over our family.
Yeah, again, hits close to home, so to speak, and not a cliche, you know. But
absolutely.
Now, your latest piece for the Daily Beast is titled COVID-19, The Docs Are So Worried They're Preparing Their Wills, and that's available on dailybeast.com. A fascinating article and a sobering article. I mean, just a couple of things I noticed in it, but one thing, some doctors are saying that they're staying in hotels to protect their families. That's got to be... Wow, the isolation that they're going through in this must be just incredible. How did they talk to you about that? What did they say?
Well, I was so surprised and humbled that they could even make the time to talk to me in this moment where they're so beyond pressured. But one doctor said that he's got a 9-year-old and an 8-month-old, and the stress of going back home and worrying about contaminating his family, contaminating his baby, in any way compromising his family's health is so great that he's, like many other doctors and nurses, he is sleeping in a hotel. And I could hear the pain in his voice because the anxiety, as he put it, he said, first we have, we go to work. What everybody's seeing what the general public is seeing on the news is what we are going to see, what we get up in the morning or at night, depending on our shifts, and we go to work, and that's our life. And we have the anxiety of the patients. And keep in mind, the patients are completely separated and isolated from their family members. So they're scared. You have the human contact that you would normally have as a doctor or a nurse. You have a face, you might be touching the person with gloved hands. Have you ever been in the hospital, Stephen?
Yeah, it's been a long time since I was in a hospital, like as a patient, but I mean, I've gone to visits, a number of people, and I don't relish wanting to be there, that's for sure.
Right. So I'm just sort of reflecting. I had an infection I had to be hospitalized for in 2018. And I'm just reflecting on the humanity of the nurses who took care of me. They were so compassionate and so loving.
I get that. Like my doctor and my doctor's
faces.
office are really cool people, and they're like I mean my first visit to a doctor after not going for 25 years is going back about 5 years ago. Stupid. Yeah, I was a student. And then I'm going to a doctor with iatrophobia and all this stuff going. I'm scared of doctors. Don't touch me. And I told them going in.
Right.
Look, I said I'm a baby. I'm a fool. I'm So and they said no, it's okay. Don't worry. And look, they treated me like I don't feel more safe than I do at my doctor's office. Everybody there is so kind and compassionate. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but when you asked if I'd been to a hospital, I get that part at least. So but please continue with your story. You were in a hospital.
But part of what softened your own, part of what made you feel okay at the doctor's office was the compassion reflected.
Yes.
Was the compassion toward you. There was no shaming. So just put all that into, imagine being a nurse whose job it is to put in IVs, to give injections, to check people's, mostly it's CMAs who check people's certified medical assistants who check people's, vitals. But just imagine, like, you're in a hospital bed and you see all these people coming in and out, and they're wearing their faces, they're wearing their expressions. They might be touching you with gloves, but you see them, they smile, you talk to them, the people who bring you the food are smiling and cheerful, and all of a sudden you can't see, there's no humanity.
Yeah.
So imagine the anxiety of the patient who's gasping for air. You're only in the hospital if you're super, super, super sick and you cannot breathe. You have pneumonia deep in your lungs. You are in deep pain. One of my daughters just said it felt like her lungs were on fire. I've heard someone describe their lungs as feeling as if they were lined with fiberglass insulation that was smoldering. So imagine that imagery. Like, your patient, this is how you feel. You're gasping for air, and your doctor and your nurse and everybody, your whole team, is covered basically in hazmat suits. So they're like, that's anxiety provoking for everybody. The people are forced to wear, we don't have, I'm sure we don't in this country, we were not prepared for this. And doctors and nurses do not have the correct personal protective equipment. So they're using these makeshift gowns, makeshift face masks, makeshift face shields. They're out of gloves. And they don't even know how to put them on in some cases because they're unaccustomed to them. They're unaccustomed. How do you wear a face shield? They've never had to wear a face shield before. So there's just so much pressure in every single interaction. And it seems to be so desperate.
Yeah, it's like
And then you have to go to a hotel room and be alone.
Wow. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, and I heard a story. Yeah, I heard a story. I'm going to be on to this next. I heard a story about nurses who are holding up the phone from like 6 feet away for people who are intubated, breathing their last breaths, with FaceTime from their relatives that's the way they're able to say goodbye. It's just heartbreaking.
How does that not break your heart?
And you've got to keep going.
Yeah.
We're not even at the apex yet. We don't know when the apex is going to hit. What are we, 5 days from not having enough ventilators? So one thing I'll say is that if this does not push us in the direction of needing and implementing immediately a national healthcare system, I don't know what will.
You're making a great point, that's for sure. And the other concern is the other side. The concerns of mental fallout for the frontline responders and the doctors and the nurses, of PTSD on them out of this whole event.
Oh, do you know what I heard in talking to people about that story? I wasn't able to include, everybody's voice, but this will come later. They can't even begin to process. When you're traumatized every single day, you can't even begin to, and you got to go back and do your job day after day after day after day, shift after shift after shift after shift. You don't have time to process what happened to you, what is happening to you. So we're not going to see the fallout from this for a while. I mean, one doctor who I spoke to, who runs a suicide hotline for physicians, because they, as you and I have discussed, they kill themselves at a rate double that of the national population in the U.S.
That was staggering to hear that.
Well, there are a lot of reasons, and part of it, again, is some of the things we discussed about the incredible pressures of our medical system, which and the way doctors are treated in this country, which is not one that affords them a ton of respect. They go into severe debt to pay for their medical educations, and then they're forced to. They go into medicine. People go into medicine because they feel called to do it. Nobody signs up for 6 years of training, 8 years of training, because they want to become famous. It's not like they're, I mean, they do it because they're called to do it. They want to help people. And now the way our medical system is evolving, they're only able to help people in 10 to 15 minute increments all day long. And it's not very satisfying. In fact, it's soul deadening, and they get a lot of burnout.
It's almost like you book a 15-minute appointment for life-saving care, the same way you would book an appointment to go have your big toe looked at and wait. You know what I mean? Oh,
exactly. Exactly. The person who might see you, for example, the story you just told, okay? You hadn't seen a doctor for 25 years, and I'll bet you that first appointment you had was not 15 minutes long,
No, no, it
right?
wasn't. No, it wasn't. And
Right.
now I'm trying to stay longer asking stupid
Um,
questions. you know?
well, but I'm sure that they welcome that.
Yeah.
Doctors want you to be well. They don't want you to be sick.
Yeah, you're right. No, no. Yeah.
So, so,
It's just the opposite end
where
of the
were we?
coin for me now, But
Well, and thank goodness, thank goodness you have a place to go talk about your medical concerns.
yeah, so I mean that's
So,
going to change the medical professions too. I mean, on one hand, down the road, generations from now, people will get into the professions. There'll be little kids watching this and being inspired by this. To become people studying viruses and what is it, epidemiologists and on that kind of
exactly,
thing. But that's a long wait though in
exactly.
between. But I mean, right now, what can we do for our doctors and our healthcare workers at this moment?
Uh, Thank them. Um,
Yeah,
Thank them and ask how we can help.
yeah,
And nurses too. Everybody,
mm,
everybody
yeah.
in the chain. So,
Yeah,
so
you've written a book on alcoholism and a number of articles on addiction, which I've learned so much from them, and I've been able to incorporate different things into my life through them, and I'm sure lots of people have. But do you see? I mean, obviously, you must see a spike coming in this with alcoholism and addiction, and that. Do you have any advice, or is this just something society is going to have to live with for the time being?
I honestly think society is going to have to live with this for the time being.
It's a crazy
Hospitals
question.
are, yeah, I mean, but it's a really good question. And I know a lot of people are asking it. Addiction specialists are totally overwhelmed with calls. One of the things that is really important in the treatment of addiction, regardless of, I mean, as you know, um, came down pretty hard on the success uh, capabilities of 12-step programs. But regardless of that, a lot of addiction treatment, whether you're in a 12-step program or not, involves community
Yeah,
and being there and showing up. And it is just brutal right now for people who are alone. They're anxious. They maybe lost their job. They're behind on rent. They don't know what's going to happen. And the booze is right there. It's right.
mm.
The liquor stores are open. So, and I'm not saying the liquor store should be closed. I think that's a disaster. We tried that before with prohibition and it
Oh well,
didn't
yeah,
work
I
out
know the
very
black
well.
market is going to thrive if you do it. So
Yeah,
it technically
it
is. I
didn't,
know it
right. It
sounds
didn't
funny.
work
It's
out
an
very well.
essential.
So,
So, yeah,
right,
yeah,
right. I mean, it's better than bathtub gin, that's for sure.
absolutely.
So,
Yeah,
which is going to kill people. But yeah, so how are people coping? Well, the answer is they're not. I mean, they're trying, but they're not. They are totally triggered. As we all know, anxiety is one of the alcohol. Let's just take alcohol for instance. Booze is one of the most economical antidotes to anxiety there is, right? I think we can all agree on that,
yeah.
right? And it's right there, it's socially acceptable, and it works. And you know how much you need to take the edge off. And then, there's a fine line between taking the edge off and drinking a blackout every night. So, which I'm not saying people are doing that, but I did see a statistic that alcohol sales are up 22% in the month of March. We're up 22% in the U.S. in the month of March. I'm not surprised. So, as for what people can do, well, um,
Reach out, right?
read meditation apps. There are, phone calls that you can get on, but it's still, gosh, it's just brutal.
Mm,
It,
mm.
it is brutal. Because it's not the same as going to see a friend and, going for a walk that's 6 feet apart is not necessarily the same as hugging somebody. One of the things we need that is the most sustaining to us when we're in the midst of hard times is physical touch. And we can't, it's really hard. What if you live alone? What if you live with, a roommate who you sort of are trying to scoot around in the 2-bedroom apartment you share and you can't leave? It's tough.
In some ways, I as I sit here single with my pet rabbit, I'm fine. But I think of some people in some ways, some family members, let's say, who have to isolate in the same house. In some ways,
right, exactly.
If they're,
yeah.
madly in love with each other or like really close or bonded or what have you, for whatever reasons, that may be in some ways harder, than other ways. You know what I mean? Like than for someone me single who's not concerned because this is my normal, state of being. This is my normal
Right.
atmosphere type of thing. I don't mean to sound woe
Right.
is me and I'm the biggest loser, but you know what I'm saying?
No,
Like
no,
you know
no,
what I
no,
mean?
but
Like I'm just saying that for some people who really are used to touching and reaching out, like you say, that physical thing, and that's a scientific thing too. I mean, physically it does make a
Yeah.
difference in your life. So I mean, it's a necessary thing, but. I guess reaching out as much as we can right now is the best thing that we can all do.
And you and I did this the other night. You reached out to me on Facebook, and I just picked up the phone and called.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think it's the first time we've spoken. So at least we are doing that, and I think that's one way we're people are trying to take care of each other, and I just think we need to keep doing it. But it's
Yeah.
going to be a long haul, and we have to, as you say, we need to keep reaching out. We need to keep supporting each other, but it's hard. It's hard. And are you all in total lockdown in Quebec?
No, not yet, but it's just essential needs, and I believe it's changing from day to day. But I think at this point, I know on the Ontario side, they're putting into a bylaw you must remain 6 feet apart. Like on the street or that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not passing, but hanging out type of thing. So I mean, it's
Right.
it just keeps tightening up all the time. So until that curve bends, we're not going to know what's going to happen. But I mean, I could hang up or hit stop on the recording device, and it could change by the time I hit that. So it's really
Right.
hard to say. But it just quickly, if you could predict the future a year from now, where do you see America, the world, best case, worst case type of thing?
Best case, I see that we have the science has saved the day. Here's the silver lining. As we have a president who is a climate change denier. His supporters are climate change deniers. They're science deniers. Okay. So, and that is exceedingly dangerous. This is why we are in this position in the first place. As you well know, Obama had a pandemic team, a special pandemic team that he set up during the Ebola crisis that was on the ground, and there were resources that were funding research into the next pandemic, which everybody knew was coming. And then Trump got elected. He dismissed that team. And now where are we? Science is desperately trying scientists all over the world are desperately trying to find a vaccine, to find treatments that can lessen the effects of the virus. So the good case scenario, it's interesting. I had to sort of stop myself from saying best case. Best case is that this curve flattens out, but it's not going to. I mean, it's going to be much bigger than we think, in my opinion. But okay, back to the point. Best case scenario is that science reestablishes itself as something we need to trust, and we haven't really been in that position since massive resources were unleashed for science during the Cold War. We were, in a race to beat the Soviets in every single regard. So I see that as a hopeful thing, because prayer with our vice president is not going to get us through this. So I'm hopeful about that. And I'm hopeful for, just as you say, those little kids who are watching television and want to become doctors one day, want to become the virologists and epidemiologists who can help solve this crisis.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful for that. Worst case scenario, worst case scenario, and I don't know if I fully believe this, but it's hard to even give words to. But as you well know, this is the United States, right? So people are buying guns and they're buying ammo. And, I'm just hoping we don't get to a point of such desperation where there's looting and violence and more racial hatred than we already have.
Yeah.
But hey, it's the United States. It's happened before. It's happening right now. In terms of hate crimes, look at Charlottesville, look at, neo-Nazi marches that we have all over. So yeah, that's worst case scenario. And worst case scenario is that I do believe in the United States. I believe everybody has a better angel. Maybe not. I'm not sure. I'm not actually. I take that back.
I like that idea.
I don't think the leader. I don't even like to say his name. The person who's in charge in Washington right now has any better angels, and I don't think the people around him have better angels. But I would like to think that the rest of us do, and that at this incredible moment of our extraordinarily shared fragility, those of us who are trying to do the right thing are banding together to also demonstrate our shared humanity. So that's where I come out. I hope that's the case. I hope we, there are going to be so many lives lost. There already have been. I don't know if you knew the group. I just want to say a little thing about Fountains of Wayne. There was a singer named Adam Schlesinger,
yes.
who was, he passed away on Wednesday. He was 52 years old. So, of the virus. So this is going to hit not just famous people who trend on Twitter, but it's going to hit people we know, people we love. It already has hit people I know and love.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to shake us up a lot.
Yeah,
and I hope for the best. I hope it doesn't turn. I hope it helps unite us, not divide us.
And that's the cautionary part of the whole tale, Well,
right.
Gabrielle, as long as we have writers like yourself out there who are out to try and uncover the truth and still can give us the facts, but yet keep their compassion and show us that they haven't lost their innocence, I think we've got a best case scenario, as long as we've got more writers and authors such as yourself. So thank you so much for joining us on Downhome Corner. My best to you and your family. Please stay safe, and hope we can get you on the show again sometime, okay?
Thank you so much, Steve. I so appreciate your having me on, and my best to everybody up there in the Great White North. I'm a big fan. My grandfather was Canadian, so.
Well, we're going to have to get you an honorary Downhomer passport, if nothing else, okay?
Okay, good. Even if it's just for the Maritimes. He was from Alberta, but even if it's just for the Maritimes, I'll take it.
Well, tell them you know Steve, and they'll either you're in or they'll kick you out forever. One of the two. It's a shot you take. So.
Okay. All right, Steve. Thanks so much for having me on.